Joining me on the program now from the Free Speech Union, Nathan Seiuli. Kia ora, thanks for your time today.
No worries, thanks for having me, Andrew.
Now, you would think that a libertarian party like ACT would be all about free speech, and it seems that when the speech agrees with them, they are in favour of it, but a bit of a mixed bag in terms of David Seymour's response to academia recently.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you approach it. I think it's pretty hard to play with a straight bat. That's one of the things that the Free Speech Union we pride ourselves on. We've been principled across a number of issues. I think once you step into the political sphere, it's a little bit harder. There's a lot of politicking and campaigning that goes on.
Yeah.
I think in this instance specifically, though, what I'm seeing is people saying that David should not be allowed to criticize academics or people outside of the sphere of politics, and they've called it bullying and this and that.
What?
The people that he's called out have submitted against the bill that he's brought through, and they've entered themselves into the political sphere effectively. They've entered themselves into the fight.
Yeah.
Take it however you want, bullying or there being no right of reply. I mean, there is a right of reply in New Zealand because we live in a nation with free speech. They could definitely have a right of reply. And David, what he's done, and he said this, is it's satire, it's humor, it's a joke. I think it's absolutely free speech. And these academics who expect to be able to make political statements and stances and be protected by the institution or by their role are absolutely dreaming if they think that they can't be criticized or critiqued based on what they have said themselves.
I mean, it comes down to definitions, and we, of course, the problem still exists. What is hate speech? Well, if we could define that, maybe we could draft a law, but we can't, so that's problematic. What is bullying? Somebody who says something that makes me upset because I disagree with them, well, that's a very low bar, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's like these people are sitting at home, sipping on a cup of tea, absolutely innocent, waiting for, tomorrow to come. They were out there making political statements of their own. So
Yeah.
I think when the spotlight's been turned on them, they haven't appreciated probably the attention. But that's part of the game. This is the nation that we live in. We live in a democratic nation.
Yeah.
And David is within his rights to criticize their critiques of his bill.
Yeah, totally. And I wanted to touch on this aspect of some of the pushback has been, hey, you should stick to your lane. You should only talk about politics. Well, I think I'm a living example of I talk about things that I've got absolutely no idea about in areas where I'm not a professional. That's the nature of the show that I do. If there's a rule that says you should only be allowed to talk about something if you've got a PhD in that topic, again, that's very restrictive of speech in our nation.
It's funny you bring it up. I've just stepped out of a team meeting and we talked about this exact thing this morning. The idea that only experts can talk about their field of expertise is absolutely ridiculous. It's opposite to free speech. It's antithetical to free speech. Free speech means you can talk about things that you don't know anything about. It means that you can enter into debates that you have absolutely no basis to be a part of. And you can learn, you can hear information, you can grow. But sometimes unorthodoxy or things that are outside of the scope of the profession can really come and shake it up and challenge things and change things for the better. So we can't get into this mindset where only experts or people with a special piece of paper can comment on certain issues.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than that.
Welcome to the internet. Welcome to the second quarter of the 21st century in this regard. Having said that, though, Nathan, if I was doing research, if I was wanting to form an opinion based on some of the views and research of others, actually there is wisdom to say, hey, I'm going to talk to people who are professionals in this area, who have done some research, who aren't just trying to get their 15 seconds of fame on social media or to influence some political outcome. There is an advantage in going to the experts, but they don't have a veto on who gets to say what, right?
Exactly. I always like the idea, or, I'm very aware of the idea that you can find a study to back up any claim.
Yeah.
If you look hard enough, you can find a study anywhere. I think some of our previous guests, like Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, proved that with the grievance studies hoax, where they put forward false research papers that were accepted into academic journals on very little scrutiny and academic criticism, and were published under fake names. So if you have a position and you have a bias, you can probably justify that just simply by using Google. But that's why it's important that we have a diversity of views in the debate, in the marketplace of ideas, because the marketplace of ideas is unbiased. The best ideas win. So they need to be made clear. They need to be made publicly and hopefully loud so that everyone can have an opportunity to hear them. And then from there, we as the people can decide what is the best idea in that marketplace.
Should we expect a higher standard, though, of political discourse from somebody who, well, last week was acting Prime Minister of New Zealand? It's all very well for David Seymour to say, hey, I'm the leader of a minor party, I've got to pull these political stunts to attract media attention, and I get that. But actually, now that you're given this serious position, now that you are in a position of senior leadership, Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand, should we expect a higher standard from our politicians, or is that naive when it comes to quality of free speech?
Listen, the more I meet politicians, the less I am excited about politics in our nation. I think, of course, it's very, it's a nice idea that people would hold themselves to a higher standard the higher they go in office. But I think we look at politics alone this year, we've seen some pretty bad behavior, speech, language, whatever you want to call it, taking place in the highest office of our nation. I think, people are flawed and people are going to make mistakes. But yeah, I think if you put all your hope in politicians being transparent, above board, people of integrity, maybe you haven't read enough or haven't lived long enough or haven't looked at history enough.
Although, just to push back on that slightly, I think we did see a remarkable demonstration of integrity and grace last week with the with Tash Kemp and the way in which people from all sides of the political house spoke to that, and there was no point scoring, there was nothing like that, there was just genuine grief and compassion for somebody who's fallen. So occasionally the politicians get it right. Wanted to talk though about academia, and I could have started the conversation by, hey, this has been a year of free speech union versus academia, really, before David Seymour got involved. Now you have been engaged with pushback on some of the shutdown of free speech on academic institutions, but it seems now that the tables have turned a little bit, that the academic institutions are inviting the Free Speech Union onto campuses to help teach them what free speech should look like and to help them draft some of their policies. I mean, this is quite remarkable.
Well, it's not the institutions that have invited us. It is the politicians who are working on this policy. Our preference and our desire would not be that the government would come in and tell universities how to run the ship.
Yeah,
absolutely. We want as little government interference as possible, but our institutions are at a point, and we know this through research, through survey, through talking to academics, where they're struggling to self-correct. They've lost their social license. They're pretty far down a track that they shouldn't be down. And unfortunately, the government feels a real mandate to get involved. So we have come alongside to make sure that what takes place is what's needed. It's not going to ruin what the institutions are supposed to be, which is the critic and conscience of society.
Yeah.
They're not going to be taken over and being told what they can and can't talk, because academic freedom includes the right to teach what the institution deems to be worthy or the right thing to teach within the institution, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting involved there to just make sure that there is a really strong free speech element, that academics are protected, because institutions don't have free speech. Academics and students do. We want to make sure that those two groups are protected. The institution is just the vehicle through which these people take the journey to pursue knowledge and information. So we're getting involved there, and we're helping to draft that legislation, and we already put it through. It's progressing quite well.
I mean, that is I suppose, the sign of hope in that regard. And whilst, you're still waiting for your invitation, perhaps from the academic institutions to come in and show them how to do things, there seems to be a more open response. The tide seems to have turned on this one, and I think there's perhaps a general recognition, although perhaps not at the top of the ivory towers, to say, you know what, there has been a mood shift. We need to course correct in this regard, and people at least more open to having the conversation on this. And hey, perhaps David Seymour's reading the room on this one as well and saying, well, come on, academic institutions, they're an easy target at the moment with some of the statements recently. Hey, Nathan, very much appreciate what you do. I know that you've got a very busy schedule at the moment, some exciting things coming up for the Free Speech Union. If people wanted to connect with what you do to keep informed on what is happening in the space, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, we're all over social media, obviously X, Facebook, Instagram. So check us out there, just Free Speech Union NZ, or head over to our website, fsu.nz. We've got everything there, and sign up to our emails, because we send out some really great material that you can keep up to date with what we're doing. Yeah,
but certainly recommend people do that, fsu.nz. Nathan, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.